Lawyers, what detail did your client fail to bring up that completely lost you the case? 1. Case as a paralegal. In a negligence case, the client argued that a lack of street lights and a cyclist he couldn't see were responsible for him hitting a wire pole. Upon discovery, the first respondent's report indicated that they found the driver in the driver's seat, pants down, with corn playing on the phone. Wasn't difficult to figure out who was negligent at that point. 2. I'm a court-appointed attorney for qualifying individuals in family matters. Termination of parental rights case. Have been fighting to argue that my parents are stable, working lawfully, have a suitable apartment, don't need psychotropic meds anymore, are ready to be a parent, etc. After a few months of negotiating with all the parties and the Department of Children, Court Services, we have a pre-trial to try and convince guardians. Before the hearing, I met with my client to see if anything had changed. Nope, it's all good, let's get my kids. Great, that's not happening today, but let's try. We get going in court. My client, who is super hot-headed and quick to anger, gets riled up and goes off on the guardians, screaming in open court. It doesn't end there but reveals 1. That she no longer is working, 2. No longer in an apartment, 3. She doesn't want to have a relationship with guardians despite her kids loving them, 4. She won't send her kids pictures of the toys they miss and can't have, 5. Plans on moving out of state, 6. Thinks they can live as a family off of state aid when she gets them back, and is 4 months pregnant. All in 15 seconds, I was too shocked to even react. Speechless. Not the image of stability and parental fitness I've been trying to paint since last July. 3. Opposing counsel, isn't it true you hit the victim in the face with a brick? Client, no. Marcus hit him with a brick. I hit him in the back with a piece of wood. 4. He'd sent a photo of his wife's beaten face to his wife with a message saying something along the lines of this: do you want this to happen again? He came across very well in court up to that point, but his mask slipped when that came out. 5. Lawyer in the UK. I acted as a member of a famous pedophile hunting group. My client was charged with various offenses relating to his vigilantism, most seriously causing grievous bodily harm with intent. He wanted me to fight the case on a public interest defense point that is not available to him in statute or at common law, contrary to my advice. I followed his instructions as I was bound to do. If the state won't punish pedophiles properly, then it's left to men like my client to take the law into their own hands, a horse poop argument for a whole host of reasons. His laptop was seized by police and submitted for forensic examination. He had a staggeringly huge database of child pornography on it. He was a massive pedo. 6. A friend of mine is a defense attorney. He was representing a guy with a lengthy record for assault. Basically, this guy took an AC unit and threw it at his girlfriend. My buddy tells me he got a plea deal for 1 year of probation and no jail time. The judge is all ready to accept the deal when he asks the defendant if he has anything he wants to say. The defendant responds, yeah, I don't know why they charged me with assault. I never touched her. I just threw an AC at her. This is bullshit. The judge rescinded the plea deal because of the defendant's attitude/lack of remorse, went to trial, and got a year in jail. 7. He filmed his offenses for his YouTube channel. The cops didn't even know. A witness brought it up on day 3 of a trial. It was a nice quick change of plea that afternoon. 8. The guy in prison hired me to request a modification of his sentence because he was doing very well, completing many optional programs, no rule violations, etc. He had his family come in and pay and everything to get started. I asked the family and the client if he had requested modification before because the law said that for his conviction, he could only request modification twice for any one sentence, regardless of if they were granted or denied. Swore up and down he'd never filed before. You can see where this is going. After a few hours of reviewing records and preparing documents, a copy of the CCS finally arrived. He'd personally filed for modification 6 times since he was sentenced with handwritten pleadings that were all denied. So the one he hired me for was a waste of time and would never be considered. 9. Not my client, but the son of the opposing party lied about being blind to make himself seem more sympathetic as a witness. We didn't know either until he took the witness box. Their counsel asked him to take the oath, and he picked the card up and read it. That was the cherry on top of a series of ridiculous events. Shortly after, the judge dismissed the whole thing in our client's favor. I was a trainee then, but my boss, who was in her late 60s then, said it was the most ridiculous case she'd ever handled. 10. I'm a public defender in an area with lots of meth use. Meth makes most people talk. A lot. So I can't tell you how many clients forget to mention that they got to the jail still high and called their mom/girlfriend/buddy on the recorded jail phone and not only confessed to the crime but also brainstormed whatever alibi or version of events I'm relying on to defend them. 11. I am a lawyer, but I was only watching this trial, not participating. So the case was that woman A had hit woman B in the head with a heavy beer pint at a bar, and woman B got pretty serious injuries. The defense claimed that woman A had not hit anyone with the pint, but instead had just thrown the pint in a random direction, and it happened to hit B in the head, thus it was an accident and not a battery. The prosecution had a CCTV tape from the bar, which was shown at the trial. And the tape clearly showed in HD as A walked behind B and smashed the pint to her head so hard that the pint shattered on impact. I looked at the defense lawyer, and his jaw almost hit the table. The prosecutor also noticed this and asked something along the lines of, "Thrown, A?" The defense lawyer said that he couldn't get the CCTV tape open on his computer due to technical difficulties when he was reviewing the evidence. Woman A was found guilty. So yeah, I was completely dumbfounded. 12. My father is a judge. I remember him talking about a case where a woman was suing for a severe back injury that she said was preventing her from working and taking care of her kids and so on. In the middle of the trial, a pen rolled off the table, and she bent over trying to reach it from her chair, but the pen was too far away, so she stood up and bent over, picked it up, and went back to her seat as if nothing is out of the ordinary. My dad is just looking at her and she snaps at my dad and goes, "What are you staring at?" My dad asked her if she was okay and her response was that she was fine. Her attorney leaned over and said something to her and she then loudly started complaining about her back and how much her back hurt, but no one believed her lol. 13. This one ended my marriage. My husband lost his job in the title/mortgage business. He applied for unemployment benefits but was denied. I decided to help him with his appeal hearing. I asked him multiple times before the hearing, is there anything you did that caused them to fire you? He said no, absolutely not. They fired him out of nowhere. The hearing day comes. He testified under oath that he did nothing wrong, was a good employee, no issues. Upon cross-examination, the other attorney pulled out documents from one of his real estate closings, documents he forged and backdated. Had to admit he perjured himself. Needless to say he didn't get unemployment, and he didn't sleep at home that night. 14. Now you put it that way, maybe I did hit the car. Simple as good. 15. Employment law matters. He claimed to have been unfairly dismissed over bogus performance management. The real reason, he organized via Craigslist to have someone collect a box of his cum from a children's playground. There were explicit messages from him asking what they did with it, and whether they rubbed it all over themselves. The employer provided us with the messages. Edit, he was doing this on company time. 16. Not a lawyer as such, but a planning consultant. The client signed a sworn affidavit stating he'd been running a truck park business for over 10 years on a piece of land. After 10 years the use becomes immune from legal action. The counsel checked Google Maps and saw immediately he lied, had only run the business for 7 years. He had committed a criminal offense by submitting a false sworn affidavit. Plonker. 17. A defendant was issued a cell phone ticket while driving and defended himself. Your Honor, I was not using a smartphone while driving. I was using a flip phone. Guilty. 18. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we started the case, it emerged that he had been given 3 written warnings and called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. 19. Not me, but my dad represented a guy in a civil case. He doesn't normally do criminal law, but in this instance, the question of a forged signature came up, and his client lied, saying he didn't forge it. My dad was very clear in explaining that admitting to him wouldn't land him in jail, it would just allow him to build a better defense, but he still denied forgery, and so my dad rolled with it. He said his case was completely cut up once it came out that, yes, in fact, his client did forge the signature. Guys and gals, your lawyers aren't a snitch, they're trying to get you the best possible result. Always be honest with your lawyer. 20. Not a lawyer, but a woman I know received several hefty speeding fines. In my country, you can go see a magistrate to have the fines reduced if you plead poverty. She heard about this and decided to give it a shot, so she went to court and told the magistrate a sob story about not having enough money. The magistrate heard her out, then he asked her, Madam, what type of car do you drive? She replied in a tiny voice, a Porsche.